I'm gonna talk about something that is not within my realm if you're dealing with strictly philosophy, religion, and politics, but it is within my realm insofar as I'm a lefty, and that has a lot to do with scalpers and how they operate. So I guess today we're just going to be talking about class for a little bit, if that's okay with everyone. I don't want to get terribly reductionist, but I also, given that I am a gamer and I have seen a lot of this happen recently, I do want to talk about it a little bit. So, scalping. What is scalping and what does it have to do with class? Well, let's talk about economics for a second here. Everybody's heard the basic economic shtick, right? Supply and demand. Okay. Now, your supply chain is your production side, and your demand side is your consumer side. This is basic shit, right? I'm not telling anybody anything new right now. Okay. This is, if somebody's tuning into this, they're just like, oh look, it's an economically illiterate leftist trying to explain basic shit. Yeah, that's basically what it is. I have other people I talk to whenever I'm proving to be economically illiterate, but so. Where do scalpers factor into this? Let me tell you a story about a Facebook interaction that I had. Now, anybody who spends any time on Facebook knows that there are like local marketplace groups, places where you can hire things like plumbers or where you can sell furniture or stuff like that. And there was somebody selling a PS5 on there for $1,000. Now, I've got a few of these conversations in regards to Facebook groups, but I want to focus on this one for a second. Selling a PS5 for $1,000. Now, a PS5 retails right now, MSRP, well, not really MSRP, for $500, which is astounding considering that when I was in high school 10 years ago, the PS3 released at $599 US, almost as if Sony made a grave mistake in that generation. But anyway, so $500 US for a new console. Now, as long as it's not a Nintendo console, that's not outside the norm right now. And that's also about what you would spend on an entry-grade gaming PC, right? About $550 can get you an entry-grade gaming PC, give or take a little bit depending on what operating system you're running on. So, you know, that makes sense. Now, is that within everybody's means? Not really. There was a time when $500 was more than what I made in a single 2-week paycheck, and I wasn't able to purchase anything new like that at all. But I'm not here to talk about that. What I want to talk about is what scalpers do to the working class, your proletariat. So whenever a company releases its initial run of product, there's going to be either a strain on that company to produce enough for the people who want to buy, or they're going to artificially lower the supply in a given area. Now, I'm not a fan of artificially lowering supply. We see issues with that when it comes to things like the diamond business, for instance, where there's an artificial scarcity because there's a monopoly on diamonds, and that artificial scarcity allows them to inflate the price, again, artificially. You see this with gaming consoles, too. But what happens when you combine artificial scarcity, which I'm not sure is the case right now, or it could just be limited run, with scalping. Now, what is scalping, and why is that important here? Well, scalping is when you buy a piece of merchandise with the intent of selling it back to people, usually with a very quick turnover. You do this within a month. This isn't somebody buying something and then, of course, 10 years later it's worth more, so they sell it for more. This is not somebody buying a shiny Charizard when they're 12 years old for $50 and then selling it to buy a house when they're an adult 20 years later. This is what's happening here is buying a PS5 for $500 and then selling it for $1,000. And it's not just happening with that. I'm a gamer. I'm involved in a lot of gaming communities. One of those is the Pokemon trading card game. This happened there as well. And I've had similar conversations over here in Facebook groups. One of them is called Verbank, for people who want to buy and sell Pokemon trading cards online. we recently had a run of something called Champion's Path, and Champion's Path in Japan were a set of basically starter decks, each of 9 of them, each of them featuring a popular Pokemon. One had Eevee, one had Shaman, I believe, one had Charizard, and of course, if it's Pokemon, Charizard's always going to be worth more. Well, what happened when they brought that over to America? They didn't release it as a bunch of starter decks, they released it as a set, a standard booster pack set, with the cards that originally were in the starter decks, and then they, instead of releasing this as a box, because, you know, normally booster packs come in boxes, they released it in what's called an Elite Trainer box, which instead of having 36 packs in it, only has about 8 or 10. And it had a special edition Charizard that would come in it of varying rarities, which of course means the rarer ones are going to be worth more. So, Champion's Path being released going into the holiday season and having some of the more popular Pokemon cards in it, what happens? Elite Trainer boxes are generally worth about $40. You go to your local Walmart, you go to your local game shop, which you should be getting them at your local game shop instead, because they are a local business to you. Please support local businesses. Scalpers are picking these up and selling them for $100 a box. Now, not only is this more than double the price of the Elite Trainer box normally, but consider that $100 is about what you spend on a regular box, a box that contains 36 booster packs. This has 10 booster packs in it. It's very much artificially inflated pricing. Now, why does this matter? Am I just bitching because I wasn't able to afford stuff? No, I haven't bought any Champion's Path stuff. I don't plan on buying a PS5. None of this pertains to me, but it does pertain to my interests. 1, gaming, and 2, I'm a lefty, so let's talk about what this does to workers. If you are a middle-class person, or if you are an upper-class person who's buys 20, 30 PS5s for Christmas. You buy them all with the intent of selling them for double the price. When I've had conversations with people who do this on these various local Facebook groups, the justification is supply and demand. But here's the thing, scalpers aren't part of the supply chain. They artificially insert themselves into the supply side of economics. But they are not naturally part of that side. Naturally, your supply side is your production. The scalper does not produce these items. Now, there is a conversation to be had about the difference between buying something at its wholesale price, the production price, and then the price that you get it at a local retailer. But at that point, the difference there, insofar as there is a difference, is that your local retailer is likely making something available to you that otherwise would not have been. A scalper is taking availability away from you. Like, I could have gone to the store to buy a PS5 if that was a thing I wanted to do, or even could afford to do right now. And the scalper artificially removes this item, not for their personal consumption, and turns this item into basically an investment. Now, what does this do? So, let's talk about this from an emotional side for a second, and then let's talk about this from a lefty side, from an economic standpoint. From an emotional side, you have taken an item that could have been some kid's Christmas present. Let's just say there's some kid in school who really wants a PS5 because all their friends are going to be getting one, and this is the thing that they want to do with their friends. This is, of course, linked to their mental health, and they really want this item. You've taken this item away from them, not because you want to use it, but because you wanted to artificially inflate its price and sell it back. Let's say you've got a working class mom, somebody who we would argue is in the proletariat. This is someone who is going to see this item, know that their son wants it. They're going to save up the amount of money that it's going to be. They know for the last 6 months this item is going to be $500, so they save up, say, $600 so they can cover tax. Time comes for them to purchase it, and it's been scalped by some dumbass who's buying 20 of them so he can sell them back out for double value. Now, does this person really need that money? Well, if you have enough money to buy 20 PS5s right now, I'd argue maybe you don't need that money anyway. You're just trying to inflate your money. But regardless, let's look at this Now, we've done the emotional, oh, the mother is now not able to afford the thing for their son during Christmas, and that's horrible, and you're being an asshole by creating this environment where the parent is not able to help their child in this case, what have you. And you can give me your arguments against this, and like, well, maybe you shouldn't be so materialistic or whatever. I don't care. That's one of those things where I just don't care. Let's look at this now from a bit of a somewhat Marxist standpoint, for giggles, right? Because you can do that. You can do Marxist analysis on things, and it can add some perspective to this. So if I buy a PS5 right now, when it comes to me through a Marxist economic view, this is now personal property. This is property for my personal use. And I'm not against personal property. But if I buy that PS5, not with the intent of using it, but with the intent on reselling it for $1,000, what is this PS5 now? It is no longer personal property. It is private property. Now, I'm sure at some point you've probably heard somebody who's a Marxist or an anarchist, somebody who reads Kropotkin, has probably argued against private property, and you've sat there and thought, but I like having my stuff. Well, from a leftist perspective, there's a difference between personal and private property. Your personal property are the things that you use. Your private property are the things with which you use to make money. In a loose sense. So, if you are the type of person who goes and artificially changes the value of an item and transforms potential personal property into a bunch of private property, you're no different at that point, at least to the eyes of the average leftist, you are no different than a predatory land shark. Artificially gentrifying and increasing the value in a given area and pricing people out of that area, meaning that only your higher class citizenry are able to afford it, and your lower class, your proletariat, your workers are not able to afford it. Not only do I find these people, scalpers, scummy from a personal perspective, because there are some items personally I wanted to buy that scalpers have destroyed. There was a little Evolution set thing that I wanted to get Raz for Christmas, and these things were like $15 each. But the Evolution that I wanted to get her was out of stock because scalpers had bought it up and then were reselling it for $50. But this is just a little piece of porcelain. It's not worth that much on its own. It's being artificially inflated into that price. Makes it to where I'm not able to buy the Christmas things for my loved ones that I wanted to do. And of course, there are larger examples of this, the PS5, Pokemon Champions Path. There are other examples that are not popping into my mind right now. So from an emotional perspective, I find this stuff inconvenient, shitty, and agitating. From a leftist perspective, I find this stuff disgusting because it's the exact same shit that I would rail against when somebody grabs potential personal property and privatizes it and turns it into something where they're getting all the money they can out of it and just exploiting the working class in doing so. So I don't like it from either of those perspectives. But here's a funny thing. In some cases, this backfires on scalpers. Not all the time. In the case of the Evolution thing that I was talking about, this is an item that's not going to have super high demand. In a year from now, they're going to make some new product, and then that's going to be the thing that people care about. This is how Pokemon merchandise works. But when it comes to game consoles, we've seen time and time again when this happens with game consoles, eventually the company produces more. This happened with the Nintendo Wii when demand for that increased well above what supply allowed for. We're seeing it with the PS5, where not only is demand above supply, but there's an artificial gap between supply and demand that has been created by scalpers. But where do you get justice in this? Well, here's my suggestion. To everyone who agrees with me that this scalping nonsense is shitty, very simply, don't buy from scalpers. Very, very simple solution. Unless that scalper has dropped the price of their item back down to its retail amount, don't buy from them. Don't. Now, why? This is not just being spiteful to the scalpers, like, aha, you can't make any money. What happens is that Scalpers sit on a time bomb, especially when it comes to items like this actually happened with Champions Path, and this is happening with the PlayStation 5s right now. They buy all this product with the intent on selling it at an artificially inflated price, and then, within 2 to 3 months, the supply side catches up to the demand side. And suddenly, the scalpers are now in competition with the retailers who are naturally bringing the supply side over into the consumer market. And now they're sitting on a worthless, well, not worthless, basically worthless, a worthless set of PS5s. They're going to have to sell them back to people for retail price because now they are in competition with retailers. My suggestion would be, if you want a console, and you really do, you want it for Christmas, you want to get it for your son, you want to get it for your daughter, and be however you want to go, don't purchase from scalpers. This isn't going to change any You're not going to find some scalper who, like the Grinch who stole Christmas, randomly is going to, their heart's going to increase 3 times that day, and suddenly, oh, I shouldn't have ruined so many people's Christmases by being a greedy fuckshit. That's not going to happen. You're not going to stop these people from being greedy, but you can kick them in the balls. And there is no bigger kick to the balls for a scalper than having to sell their stuff at used prices. Because if you have a PS5, after supply has already created equilibrium with demand, you don't just have to sell back at normal price. If you're a scalper who doesn't have like a brick and mortar retail shop or an official online retail shop, likely you are now going to have to sell this item at a used price. $50 less, $100 less, and your investment in a time bomb bites you in the ass. I would hope that anybody in my audience will at least participate in this group biting scalpers in the ass, because this has happened with PS5s. This happened back in the day with Nintendo Wii's. This is happening right now, or this happened about a month or two ago with Champions Path. This is happening right now with Pokemon as well, with Vivid Voltage, which isn't even... It's a newer Pokemon set, and it doesn't even have as many chase items in it as Champions Path, but the scalpers are realizing that their investments in Champions Path, some of them did not work out, and they're having to move on to the next product and try. I would like to see as many of these people have aching wallets as possible for ruining a bunch of people's Christmases. Personally, that's what I would like. Not only from the emotional standpoint of you guys really fucking inconvenienced me and people I care about, but also from a leftist standpoint. You're literally fucking exploiting working class people. That's not a good thing in my books. Maybe don't fucking do that. But anyway, I wanted to talk about scalpers. I wanted to talk about what they do and that it's more than just one thing. It's more than just being inconvenienced by not being able to get PS5 one time. It's literally people who have the means. We can just go ahead and say the fucking word bourgeoisie, or people who think they're bourgeoisie, people who think that they're super high economic class, making things incredibly inconvenient and sometimes downright depressing for people who don't have the means to afford these things, people who are proletariat, working class people. So, I guess I just wanted to go through that. Scalpers make me mad. They really upset me. I don't like artificial inflation of goods. I'm a collector and player for video games and card games. So, when you're in my sphere, hurting working class people, and you're in my market of games and shit, all you do is upset me. And you're upsetting a lot of people. And I know you don't care, but we can make you care when your wallets hurt.